Hi, welcome to the AIM on MS&T podcast. If this is your first time tuning into our podcast, first, welcome. We're glad you are here. Second, AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the main sectors that make up Central Florida's modeling, simulation, and training community. On our podcast, we talk with different leaders in the MS&T community. We also talk about all the cool and innovative things their organizations are doing, trends that affect the MS&T field as a whole, and keep you up to date with what's going on. If you're listening and not a part of the modeling and simulation community, we hope to share some insight about this important sector of Orlando's economy, which ranks just behind the theme park and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Kate Finkel, and today we're speaking with Lindsey Spalding and Lana Wallis. Lindsey is the Director of Workforce Development for the National Center of Simulation, and Lana is the Lead Teacher and Deputy Director for DoD STARBASE Central Florida. Welcome to the podcast, everyone.
Thank you, Kate.
To get us started, can you both give us an introduction of your background? What path brought you to where you are now in the world's epicenter for modeling and simulation? Lindsey, why don't you start?
So once upon a time ago, I was born here in Central Florida, and I do have a degree in environmental science, and I love tech and teaching. And so in about 2015, I started a 4-year modeling, simulation, and training program of emphasis at Hagerty High School in Seminole County. Really, the goal of that was to introduce our best-kept secret, modeling, simulation, and training to the families and communities so that we could build our future workforce. As that program grew, then I moved out of that program because I noticed the biggest challenge was not that the students and families were interested, that we didn't have educators to be able to teach those type of programs. And so that led me to really becoming Director of Workforce Development and inserting myself into multiple communities across the nation with a heavy introduction here in Central Florida to bring modeling, simulation, and training workforce skills, tools, and practice to our teachers and our local students. That then led to the need for a complete pipeline from early learners all the way through university and the workforce. And so that is where the Department of Defense STARBASE program came into play. And so through a true Team Orlando effort, we were able to build a Department of Defense STARBASE Central Florida program here in our partnership buildings in a cooperative agreement with the Navy, NOC TSD, supported through Team Orlando, which then led us to Lana Wallis, and I'll let her take over from there.
All right, I ended up here a totally different route. So I graduated from UF with a master's in toxicology and moved to Washington State. Well, there was not a toxicology lab, so I ended up doing genetic research. That is how I got into teaching through the director of that lab. And when I moved back to Florida, I was a high school teacher for chemistry, marine science, environmental science. That's why Lindsey and I really get along well, is that environmental side.
Yeah.
And when I was done with formal teaching, I was brought to my attention the informal side by Lindsey, and here I am almost 3 years later.
Now that we know a little bit more about each of your personal backstories, please tell us about DoD STARBASE Central Florida. That's a relatively new organization in the modeling and simulation space that just started up a few years ago. Could you describe how STARBASE got its start here, and what does it do to serve the modeling and simulation community now?
So the Department of Defense STARBASE is a Department of Defense educational program sponsored by the Office of Assistant Secretary of Defense for Manpower and Reserve Affairs. We are one of over 85 STARBASEs, but like Lana said, we are fairly new. We're in our end of our 3rd year here. And so the goal is to bring students specifically from the 5th grade level. So these are our 10 and 11-year-olds and their teachers into a 25-hour-long curriculum introducing our workforce, what those tools are. So we all, no matter where we are around the nation, are introducing CAD, 3D modeling, design, prototyping. We're introducing robotics, not just building them, but programming them, and then how humans interact with them. We do a lot of energy, force, and motion, so really setting these students and educators up for success as they go into their formal testing, because all of our standards are aligned with national and state science technology standards that we teach. And so for us, it's a great way to really introduce these students to our military. And for us, Team Orlando is very important. We're really lucky to be able to introduce them across multiple military entities. And it allows them to see, the power of Homeland Security, what that is about, how that impacts them, and then also the number of civilians who support our Department of Defense and our warfighters across industries. And so for us, the Department of Defense STARBASE program pulled our early learners in, got them to start in our programs, and now they have an opportunity to build a portfolio all the way through the workforce. And I'll let Lana, who is more in charge of daily teaching, talk to you a little bit about the inspiration she sees in the students at STARBASE.
Yeah, so especially the students when they get to meet military or industry actual workers, SMEs, subject matter experts, they really can see that things are tangible and that they can do this. And we, like Lindsey said, through modeling and simulation, we really get them excited about the future, the workforce. And we stress a lot of different things on how to get ready for that workforce. They really do like the hands-on. The students, they always go home saying great things and they can't wait to come back.
That's good.
The teachers really get to step back too and see where they have built strength with their students academically and where they might need to go back and reinforce some of the standards that maybe they thought they taught. We do everything through serious play and a team teach model, so the students see that it takes more than one adult to cover multiple, aspects. And then like Lana said, it's very application practice. We have 10-year-old soldering and energy transfer and circuit connecting.
Obviously, workforce development is a crucial aspect to maintaining the modeling and simulation ecosystem that's developed in Orlando over the years. And I understand that NCS and STARBASE have established a training pipeline for professional development. A little backstory of myself, I was the GEMS camp counselor for many years when it started here in Orlando. Through this, I saw firsthand experience of how these students got engaged and grew confidence to be team leaders throughout the years of being in the program. It is exciting to see how the students can start out in the program, become team leaders, participate in competitions, even receive scholarship funding. Then they're able to be involved even through college. Can you tell us about some of your favorite STARBASE programs that get the kids excited and interested in STEM education and modeling and simulation while still in school?
Well, I have to say thank you, Kate, and I enjoy the fact that you get to do full circle and come back as a SME from the podcast and social interaction perspective. STARBASE is their first flavor of our workforce. So to me, STARBASE really acts as an engagement catalyst. So our GEMS in GEMS Camp stands for our Gains of Education in Math and Science. GEMS is our program from 6th grade all the way through 10th grade. And then we are then growing those students to be our leaders. So then they come back through their 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year as camp counselors into their first years of college. And then our goal is once students are graduating or close to graduating that undergraduate is they get to move off into the workforce and become interns or employees in our workforce and then come back and engage and inspire our students. It's a little bit like 31 flavors. They get to taste a lot and then go and focus more. And so we do support students coming back and mentoring. So for example, we have 2 students in the lab today that are freshmen in high school that have been part of our programs, and they're competing in a science competition, and they're using one of our after school 2.0 programs, which is a 3D print Razor rover. So these students are actually taking open source 3D print files, making sure they can 3D print them accurately, which is not as easy as it sounds. Then they will be building a rover system, so they have to build the mechanics, the electrical, and then they have to program it to be able to be controlled remotely off-site. And so we're always excited to have students be introduced at STARBASE to 3D modeling, 3D printing, circuitry, soldering, and then see them pull it all together in these larger projects that we can then mentor and support as they go on to other competitions.
And one of the things that we also encourage is their creativity, right? Everybody has a talent, so we really stress that they're not in competition with each other. They can actually encourage each other and help each other grow in their interest, whether it be dancing, music, all the arts are needed. And when we bring that in holistically, they really can see the big picture of, all right, I can do this because this is my strength, and you've got your strength. Now let's work together and kill it.
Yeah, and an example of all of those skill sets is a lot of time in our summer program, we start with a bouncy ball. They have to make it from scratch. Then they have to measure it. Then they have to 3D model it. Then they use AR to compare their 3D model digital design with their live design. And then we show them how to then upload that file, and they love Roblox. And so they get to build their own obstacle game in Roblox. So the artists get involved, the programmers get involved, the engineers, project managers. So like Lana said, it's really a holistic approach to learning lifelong.
And through serious play. That's the big one. That's what catches them and keeps them with that love of learning.
I know these STEM programs mean so much to the students, and they will always remember the impact it had on them growing up. Switching topics a bit, like a lot of the projects that get accomplished in the MS&T ecosystem, collaboration is a common theme for STARBASE programs. Now, for better context for our listeners, we are recording this podcast in late November, 1 week before ITSEC. STARBASE recently entered into an agreement with Florida Virtual School, and there's even a signing ceremony to recognize that agreement that's scheduled to occur during ITSEC. First off, what is it that makes this new collaboration such a big deal?
It's super exciting for us. So I'm going to add cooperative collaboration to this. So that's the biggest importance. So students, teachers, they collaborate, but it's not always cooperative. And so with Florida Virtual Schools Foundation, we've been able to pull full-time Florida Virtual School students out of the cloud and bring them into a lab and really discuss what is a learning environment and how do you build workforce development skills at home in a virtual environment when you don't have a lab set up like STARBASE. And so it's a way to bring their students, their teachers into a physical learning environment to practice that cooperative collaboration across many tools, across many industries, and then really set them up to think about how do I go home now and rebuild my learning environment so that I can continue to use simulated circuits. I can continue to, do some augmented reality and modeling. And so it's really important for all students and educators to know a little bit about our modeling, simulation, and training industry because it supports so many of their future careers. And so the biggest, challenge really is getting the families to be able to be transported. Transportation is always our challenge, no matter what, to the lab space to gain that new experience. And once they've gained the experience with us, it helps them build a better practice at home. And to expand on that, it's not just for the students, but we've also entered into an agreement where we're helping the teachers now through multiple teacher trainings figure out, okay, how do we incorporate simulation into our teaching practice? And so ITSEC becomes a huge collaborative ecosystem. So not only are we inviting Florida virtual school educators to come and participate at ITSEC for the first time before they go into some workshop trainings. We also host the Department of Defense STARBASE instructors and directors from all over the nation. So we'll have about 30 different STARBASE locations represented in a 2-day training, introducing and reinforcing the practice of modeling, simulation, and training. Lana and her co-teacher, Chris, will also be hosting a Central Florida teacher training through the Navy to introduce simulated circuits, Arduino boards, taking 3D modeling beyond the design into the actual printing and prototyping. So there's a lot of need in our community for workforce development with the educators who are charged with STEM education. And so ITSEC gives us a great collaborative ecosystem to pull multiple partners together, from Florida Virtual School to all of our Department of Defense STARBASEs to our local educators. And then we are also bringing educators from across the state to participate in a hard problem challenge with their students so that they could really see how the military takes apart a hard problem and finds a solution. And so there's a lot of workforce development across our Team Orlando entities at ITSEC.
And we had the opportunity to go to Florida Virtual Schools conference in the convention center, actually, and there was 3,500 teachers, and there was a few that signed up, and I did a workshop with their principal, their elementary principal, and that's just the beginning. So we're starting, like Lindsey said, to really collaborate with them and help train the trainer.
Right. And I'm going to bounce off of that because I don't know how much you know, but we have 4 Starbases here in Florida. And so our very first Starbase is over in Duval County from the 90s. So then we have a Patrick Space Force Starbase, which is the second. So us here in Central Florida, and then Pensacola are 3 and 4. And so we both are Navy programs that started at the same time in 2021. And so we've worked really hard not to just pull Florida Virtual School to our location, but to actually have joint locations. So this spring we'll host a week of Florida Virtual School students in our Starbase program, and so will Patrick. So we'll be able to actually cross-collaborate across our Starbases. So we're super excited. This will be the first time we've pulled any of the Florida Starbases students to work together. We've been building the model at ITSEC for the past 2 years, bringing the Florida directors together to host our other directors. So it'll be exciting to see this cross-collaboration across Starbases this spring.
Could you also go into some other partnerships that Starbase is engaged with that you're especially excited about continuing?
We continue to work with the Florida Space Institute, and that's a big partnership that we've been really excited about. And so we have several subject matters that come in from the space industry, from launches to rovers to what it's going to be like to live, on the moon, from moon to Mars. And so we've also had some of our interns come in over the summer and work through some of the curriculum with us, like on the Razor rover project, who now are actually hired from Florida Space Institute. And so that was an exciting partnership that we're now bringing in students, introducing them to what it means to collaborate across academia, industry, and military in these different projects, what it takes to train trainers, and they build the skills with us, the proof of concept, I want to say, and really shows our industry that they're ready for them. And so we've had several students over the years through our programming end up in industry with jobs.
And even just a less informal collaboration with the local teachers. They know that they can reach out to us. We've done robotics with some of the local elementary school teachers. So we have that networking with them as well, where they know they can count on us.
Well, and now we're finding that we can count on them, because part of that is that we also host at the Ecosystem of Learning a Department of Defense exhibit booth. And because we are very much busy in training the trainers, we've depended now on our teachers, our local teachers that have come and supported their students in our Starbase programs to come and be the volunteers at the exhibit booth. They've participated in the program, they love the program, so who better to talk about the program? And so we are really appreciative to that collaboration of them coming back and supporting us at our big conference. From a workforce development perspective, to be able to collaborate internationally across multiple countries. So we've had a blast with our Brazilian friends, our Australian friends, our Trinidad friends, and we spend quite a bit of time with Welsh teachers from a special education school that are learning to take our simulation practice back to their students, which is super exciting to us because that means everybody is included.
I mentioned earlier that Starbase is a fairly new addition to Orlando's modeling and simulation scene. Now that it's established, looking ahead, what kind of projects would you like to see Starbase getting involved with in the future? And what kind of impact would you like to see Starbase have on the MS&T field going forward?
So I'm excited to always figure out what is happening in the real world, in the workforce, and help us build some reflective programs. And I'll let Lana talk about CPIRCH in a second, because we're really headed to where we want to work in multiple systems working together. So you heard me mention Florida Space Institute and the Razor program. So we've got that started and established. We really want a drone program. So all we have is a net. So we don't have our drones yet. So once we get our drones, the goal is not to fly drones separate, but to have drones and rovers interact. But one of our biggest passion projects that we really want to develop is our CPIRCH program. And so we started with the basic CPIRCH competition last year, but then I'll let Lana, because she's the lead coach on here, fill us out where we'd like to see our CPIRCH program go.
So CPIRCH, if you don't know, is a ROV. It's the remotely operated vehicles. So they are tethered The students, they have to build them from scratch. They cut the PVC pipe, they solder, they do everything that they can do. And these are 10-year-olds that are building these. And after they compete, our goal is that we'd like to see something environmental. I mentioned both Lindsey and I are in environmental science. So something, especially here in Florida, like what could we do to do research on manatees? What about the coastal waters? Actually, the competition this year is about corals. So that's important to us, right? Especially living in Florida.
Right, yeah.
That's a big, our tourism, our lifestyle, everything. So it would be really exciting to be able to get and contribute to actually improving our state with this program in the future.
And since we're Navy, sponsored, we feel like we should play in the water just a little bit more. And so data collection and analysis is a big deal for our workforce. And when do we start that, And so with us in these programs, our goal really is, what sensors should we, hop our sea perch up with? What data is that going to collect? The visual. Can we use AI to help us analyze the data being collected through the sea perch? And then our underwater sea perch communicates with our on-land rover, which communicates with our drone and back and forth. So we're really looking to build a complete interdisciplinary system for the students to work through communication across machines.
And I'm really excited about the underwater camera we got to hook onto it.
If you don't know, we do host 2 competitive First Lego League robotics teams. We started with 1 and it grew, so we're right now in the heat of the season, and then once our Lego League season ends, that's when we go into our Sea Perch underwater ROV season.
Okay. As cool as those collaborations and programs sound, sometimes it's just really difficult to inspire certain kids and get them interested in STEM-related fields. On the other hand, a lot of jobs that require a STEM education can offer very competitive compensation packages. But of course, when kids are really young, stuff like that can be completely lost on them. What advice would you suggest to parents who might be trying to encourage their kids into STEM studies to hopefully improve their prospects later in life?
I would say to the parents, even if you don't understand some of the things, like because technology is growing so quickly, don't fear it. Be excited and help your student, your child serious play. One of the things that Lindsey always points out is, as little kids, we buy them their cooking sets and their toy cash registers and all that, and they learn through playing, and then somehow we got away from that. So get involved with them. Get involved with the Roblox and your 3D, your Tinkercad, all the different open sources that are out there.
And I would say pay attention to the tools in your pocket, because parents don't realize, but if they've got an iPhone that's an 11 or up, they have a LiDAR scanner. And LiDAR is a light scanner, and so they have tools in their pocket that could help prepare them or their students for that future in the workforce. So we do like to talk to parents when we're on outreach and remind them to start with the tools in your pocket, see what you have, and see how that applies to various industries. And for example, LiDAR scanning is a big skill set that many different industries are using. And so it starts with that practice. And my other advice that I tell parents and students from every age, what's your passion project and how are you showcasing it? And so I sit in a lot of mock or proxy interviews with high school seniors that have not started their passion projects. They want a job. They want to be able to make that money and be hired. But what they don't understand is they have to show what they know. So a resume is not enough.
That's true.
And so that passion project that has accessibility for their future employer to see what they're doing is something that I think I probably preach a lot to. And because it gives them a chance to build confidence. And I tell them, start with the worst thing you've ever made. Show us the crappiest thing that you're so embarrassed that you don't want anybody to see. Yeah. And then we're going to see that growth and that confidence that you've built and that ability to problem solve. And it doesn't have to be a finished project, but it does need to show an evolution of thought, understanding, and learning. Just remember to enjoy learning, have fun with it. That's what makes us lifelong learners, really enjoy what we do.
And work well with each other, be kind to each other.
And yourself. That cooperative collaboration.
Yep. And yourself.
Parents, I hope you were paying attention just a few seconds ago. Lindsey and Lana, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I hope you both have a happy holiday season. For everyone listening, to keep you updated on future events in the modeling and simulation community, check out our website, teamorlando.org. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook for more recent news and upcoming events. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode of AIM on MS&T or being a featured guest, please reach out to Team Orlando News. The link will be below. We are now going to end this episode here. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to follow the AIM on MS&T podcast on your platform of choice, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!